Hey everyone, and welcome. Thanks for joining us today for today's TeamSnap webinar, How to Win the First 150 Days of Sports Season. We're at 1 o'clock now. I will give everyone, 30 seconds, another minute to log on, and then we'll get started. All right, let's kick it off. Yes, like I said, thank you everyone for joining today. Title of today's webinar is How to Win the First 150 Days of a youth sports season. Youth sports seasons move fast, and we know here at TeamSnap that all of you youth sports organizers are juggling a ton: registrations, getting your field permits, communicating with everyone during the season. Today we're here to show you how to take control of that first 150 days of your season so it runs smoothly from start to finish. Go to the next slide here. My name's Taylor McKillop. I'm on the marketing team here at TeamSnap, and I'll be one of your two hosts today. I'm joined by Jim Dowling, a seasoned youth sports leader and a TeamSnap expert who's seen firsthand what works and what doesn't when it comes to running a youth sports season efficiently, effectively, all of it. Before we dive in, just want to give everyone a quick few notes. If you need to sign off early, no worries. We're going to be sending the recording to your inbox right after the session. And if you have any questions along the way, drop them in the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen, bottom right. We'll leave some time at the end to answer a few live. Just checking out. There's also a chat in there, so you can chat and definitely, chime in. We're all about trying to make this session really inclusive and have everyone involved. So definitely feel free to chime in into the chat. We're going to give a quick look at our agenda and then introduce Jim officially. But here's what we're planning on covering today. We've broken out a typical youth sports season into kind of this easy to plan, easy to digest 5-month breakdown. I will say we know that youth sports seasons, they're all different everywhere. So they might run a little bit shorter, might run a little bit longer, but this kind of easy to plan 5-month breakdown gives you a good look at how you can just run your seasons. We've broken that into 4 main phases. So you're preparing, you're setting up, running, and then wrapping up a great season. Phase 1 actually lasts about a month. Like I said, you can give yourself a little bit more time, especially on the front end if you need. And that goes over all those important preseason prep and planning tasks. Then we're going to dive into coach onboarding, volunteer recruitment, finalizing your teams and schedules in phase 2. Phase 3 is all about making the most of your regular season and postseason, especially keeping everyone in the loop and on the same page. And then we'll wrap everything up in phase 4. So with that, I'm actually going to bring Jim on for just a little quick background about who you are, and then we can dive into the content.
Awesome. Thanks, Taylor, and welcome everyone. First of all, for all of you who are going back to school, getting ready for fall sports, I know this is a really busy time of year, so hope you're able to get through everything and staying organized. Um, Also want to just call out and thanks Taylor for being here. We do a lot of product focused webinars, but boy, we get a lot of questions just on timing, sort of best practices. So really excited to share some of those today and look forward to some interaction and activity in the chat. So feel free to post anything there. Would love to hear some guidance. But for myself, Taylor introduced me as Jim, and really excited to be here. I think first and foremost, I'm a sports parent. I've had a kid through the entire experience and in college now. The other is a 14-year-old who is in the thick of competitive sports. Over the years, I've volunteered as a coach, more so when the kids were younger, and served 5 years on a local association board as a volunteer, managing our sponsorship and some program coordination in our 8U program. I'm also happened to be commissioner of one of the largest outdoor adult hockey tournaments in the world here in Minneapolis, which is a fun experience. So been able to sort of serve in a number of different roles and carried some experience that way. Lastly, I've had the privilege of being able to work on these types, TeamSnap and youth sports platforms for the better part of 15 years. So been around the technology and been able to see that sort of advance. So really look forward to the questions in the conversation today.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim. And yeah, Like I said at the beginning, really happy to have Jim on here. Someone who's obviously TeamSnap expert, used TeamSnap in his own life, but just seasoned youth sports leader and has kind of seen it all, done it all. So really value his perspective here. So with that, we're going to get into phase one. We call this preseason prep. Um, or like I said earlier, first 30 days of your season could be longer. Hint, hint, probably suggest it to be a little longer so you can get, especially if you're running a sports organization for the first time. But laying that strong foundation here is going to make everything easier as your season moves along. Couple of key tasks here. So first one there, setting dates, locking down facilities, setting your internal calendar. If you're a first-time program manager, it is obviously crucial to lock down your facility rentals well in advance. We don't want to get into a hiccup situation later when you've booked things too late. The really big one here I want to call out is that internal calendar. We definitely recommend kind of mapping out your season calendar. So you start with yourself and your staff, getting kind of that high level overview of every milestone. So that could be your registration deadlines, could be when you're going to finalize your team and practice schedules, and keeps everyone aligned from the start. It's also a great resource that you can then share out with your parents. So you're setting those expectations early. Um, in this phase, you definitely want to open your registration, get those registration forms built, have your ability, know how you're going to start collecting payments. We'll probably, I think, maybe get into a little bit more about this, but you want to think carefully about what information you're going to need from your families. Because when you have clear forms, that saves time and it reduces a lot of back and forth later. Third point on here is updating your website. This is especially important for new families. You want to make sure all of your program details, the schedules, those deadlines, that kind of internal calendar we talked about, and even your registration info, make sure that's all current before you head into a new year. Um, like I said, for new families, this is your first impression with these new families. So when they log onto your website and are really delighted with the information, they know it's up to date. That's how you're going to really impress new families. And then last but not least, start thinking about those sponsors and those other fundraising opportunities that you might need. We all know esports is expensive. Everything's expensive. So when you're dealing with esports, especially if you're thinking about those local partnerships or trying to reach out to local businesses to get support financially, start those conversations early. TeamSnap also is a great resource. We have a whole sponsorship network that can really easily get connected with sponsors. So just think about that stuff early on. So, Jim, that's kind of a quick overview of phase one, but
Sure.
I'd love to dive in a little bit deeper on a couple of these things. So, got a few questions for you.
Yep.
First one here: what is one small preseason habit that you that could save an organizer hours later
Sure.
on throughout the season?
Yeah, Taylor, I want to go back to really quick, something
Oh,
you
all
talked
good.
about the website, and acknowledging the moment we're in, which is back to school right now. And one thing that is really I've learned over the years, and it was shared with me, was how much the new friendships, the going back to school drives conversations about like what are others doing, what am I going to do in fall and winter, what were you having fun. So there's a lot of newness that's there, and you're going to have a lot of people who are like searching out because they want their kid to participate in something with a new friend. So that's like I recommend always on websites to put a page, new families, to just list that out, make it accessible, and especially right now with so many kids going back to school and creating new friendships. For your particular question, Taylor, one thing I've done is I've sort of moved my preseason to actually be the last thing that I do in the last season. So, so much of your feedback, ideas you've got, it's really fresh in your mind. When I close out in my world, it's been a hockey season. When I've done that, right away, right when the season's over, I start with a retro. What worked? What didn't work? What would I change? What notes do I want for next year? Did I have good? You mentioned facility relationships where I'm buying ice and different practice opportunities. What were my great ones? Can I reach out to them early to start to get on, schedule? So what I recommend in that preseason is do that earlier. Start your registration. Get that, made put up and active, even if you're not making, collecting registrations, you're putting in that work to sort of do that. Because when it does come around to the actual preseason time, like 30 days, there's so much stuff going on. You're scrambling, things you didn't see. So do that early planning. It really comes out really valuable for you as you're planning.
No, I'm really glad you hit on that point, Jim, because little preview to later on in the webinar. We actually kind of get to that point. We obviously are going to walk through the whole season. So, you know, as much planning as you can get done in advance, it's just going to make everything easier on. And then the minute you hit that end of season, you've wrapped everything up. It's that life cycle, and you're right back
Yep.
into, okay, let's get ready for next year.
Yeah.
Another, go ahead,
Well,
Jim.
I was going to say, as we are talking about website, like there's one particular section combining new families and what you need to achieve objectives is like your registration pages. So, if you're doing fall registrations, you got this website, like it can't be bright enough or big enough on how to register, your page for new families has to outline all of the things that will cause anxiety, right? A new mom or dad bringing their kid, they're worried about what do I wear? Even if it's as simple as just, regular tennis shoes and t-shirt and shorts, like let them know that so they don't feel like they're showing up and their kids in a really bad experience that on night one, they might get, too nervous about wanting to go back. You can't over communicate that. So make it super simple to find your registrations and really clear for new families what they need, because this is the time that so much of that is being asked, and parents are going to start searching out those things that their kids are coming home telling them they want to sign up for.
Absolutely. And you kind of touched on it earlier. We're in a busy time of year, back to school, million different clubs, events going on, not to mention a school year. So yeah, you just want that information easy to get, and just kind of easy to check off that list, so parents aren't bringing that anxiety and having all of this, extra thoughts and questions around something. I am glad you touched on registration, because that kind of brings me to my next question for you. When you look at registration forms, obviously there's a lot of information that you can collect on a registration form.
Yep.
What is like an easy way for when you are talking about building registrations, or you're trying to turn people who are in progress on registration? How do you get people to actually fill out that form? How do you get people who start it to actually finish it, and then
Sure.
they're part of your program?
Yeah, look, make it as simple as possible. I recommend taking a healthy review of all of the data you're collecting, the information you're collecting, and maybe ask yourself, like, do I need this? I've gone through some registration forms where I just cannot believe the amount of information and data that this organization is asking about me, wondering how exactly does this help get us through a season? And, as somebody who is particular about data privacy and, that you want to make sure that parents and members, they just feel comfortable going through that, and you're only collecting what you need to do. If you're a TeamSnap customer, and for those of you who are, thank you. But just one of the features that I know that we get high marks around and high reviews is our in progress registrations, which allows you to go in and see, registrations that were maybe started by a family, and at some point they got a little tripped up, whether that was they needed to go find a credit card, or they had to get a document, or they weren't quite finished. And you can see that and engage them, send out an email, ask them if they have any questions or is there anything they can do to help get them registered. You'd be surprised at how many will be registered by the end of the day, right? They just needed that reminder, or maybe they did have a question and didn't know where to reach out. So check out your in progress registrations and use that to be a way to just help drive additional signups and fill up your programs.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim. It's really really good advice there. So with that, we've covered a lot about preseason prep, but we're going to keep it moving along to the next phase, which we're calling phase 2. This is kind of focused in, zeroed in on coach and volunteer onboarding. In this phase, so one thing I want to note at the top, and I'm actually going to share a link here. We have a whole ebook that we've built that you guys can download for free. I am going to promote this on the stage right now. Promote on stage. There we go. So that is our ebook. It's our season planning toolkit. That's kind of where that is guiding our whole conversation here. It's guiding this phased approach to planning a season. So definitely check that out, download it for free. That'll bring you right to the PDF link that you can just view in your browser, and you can hit download if you want to take it on the go. But anyways, back to phase two. So we're talking about days 31 through 60, kind of that second month of your season. This stage covers a lot, but like I said, I want to focus on coach and volunteer onboarding here. You want to get your staff ready before the first practice, because we're all about setting that tone. When you as an admin set the tone with your coaches and volunteers early on, that's just going to help everything run smoothly. Couple of key tasks here. So you obviously we're going to need to assign our coaches and volunteers, and our kids, or our athletes, to their rosters. We need to set up our schedules, our divisions, our teams. You want to make sure that every coach knows heading into the season their team, their responsibilities. This is also a great time of the year where you can recruit volunteers if you're in need of coaching support. And like I said, obviously this time we're finalizing divisions, teams, schedules. Schedules are going to change, so definitely when you're building out your schedules and that internal calendar that you have, or that calendar that you have, make sure you plan for some rain out dates, weather dates, scheduling hiccups. Just work that in case you need some extra time at the in the back half of the season to make up for that. Back to that coach and volunteering support. An orientation is a great way to kick off the season for your coaches and volunteers. It could be even as simple as a 30-minute orientation call. But you really want to make sure your team understands your expectations, understands your organization's policies, and also you can start to introduce them to the tools that you're going to use. Especially if you're going to use a sports management platform like TeamSnap, is a great time to intro that, make sure everyone's comfortable, and knows all the benefits of using it. And then last but not least, provide your resources and your coaching support during this time. Talk a lot about volunteers. If you're working with volunteer coaches, you definitely want to set them up for success. And you can do that by giving them any kind of coaching resources you have, especially when it relates to showing up to the practice field. If you have any kind of practice plans or types of drills that you want to run, this is a great time to intro that to your coaches. Um, Another thing you could talk about is tips for managing parents. Manage those parent expectations throughout the season. Your coaches are going to be the ones really on the front lines when dealing with your athletes and parents and families. So set them up for success. Give them some tips for just managing those parent expectations throughout a season. So, a couple questions for you, Jim.
Sure.
How do you personally set up your coaches, volunteers? How do you set them up for success before that first practice?
Yeah, look, depending on your program, this can be a little bit different, but I'm going to call out the third check mark you have there, Taylor, the preseason orientation. It's just so helpful to put in place a meeting. And for many of us, coach plus volunteer onboarding is the same thing, right? They're volunteer coaches or maybe paid coaches, but nonetheless, you want to sort of onboard them because, as you called out, they really are the face of your organization and can be the difference between a great experience where kids are coming back or not. So when putting these together, it's about setting up expectations, like how do we operate? It might be a conversation around playing time and not how to communicate. What are those types of expectations? And what I recommend though is like have 2 sessions. Have one for brand new first year where you're going through step by step. It's introductory. There's maybe less context about what it's like to operate within your organization, and they can answer some more questions. We're asking a lot of volunteer coaches already, so to have them come in and listen to stuff on a night that after work, that might be, or Zoom, whatever, that might just be like, I got it, I didn't need to do that. And you don't want them to start off that way. It might be a shorter 20-minute meeting or 30-minute, whatever, for your experienced coaches to just bring them up to speed on new opportunities, resetting expectations, reinforcing maybe policies or what they need to do, and just make that available to them. Ultimately, put together documentation. Give them a resource, whether it's a single sheet that's like, here's who you call, here's the people, here's the number to call, or here's the email address, or here's key dates you might get asked about. Give them the resources they need to be successful, and ultimately they'll be great stewards for you in interacting with your teams and ultimately your member families.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks, Jim. kind of related to that, we're talking a little bit about just resources, or it could even be tools. What is one tool resource that you've seen, your coaches get really excited about before they act, once they start using it?
Yeah, it's RSVPs, like hard stop.
Okay.
Getting, understanding that they're able to get, attendance tracking and what, which kids are going to be there, which ones aren't. Super helpful, especially in practice planning. Nothing worse than getting to a field or rink, whatever, and having, half the kids that you thought were going to be there. So super helpful and valuable. Tell parents, that's one of the things, like set that expectation and tell your coaches that you're going to ask them. The expectation is that they're going to provide it either the night before or the day of. And, like, reach out, send messages. I'm not getting this. Like, parents also have a responsibility as well to help with the season. And that's one good way to help, as a coach, be able to help plan effectively, to have, good experiences on the field, because ultimately people are going to have opinions, what they see, right? They see that kids got feedback. And if you're not planning for the right number of kids, it can be a challenge. So RSVP is without question the best capability, in my
No,
opinion.
yeah, you hit it spot on, Jim. I mean, I definitely participate in intramural sports in my free time, and there have been quite a few teams that I've signed up for where there's no RSVPing, and then you show up to the field and no one's there, and what a bummer, So just a really good way to just create better expectations and just have a good experience.
Yep.
Awesome. So with that, we're going to dive into phase 3. I'm actually going to quickly just going to post a poll here. So definitely feel free for everyone in the audience to chime in when you can. Poll is, what's your biggest hurdle when you're planning a new season? So definitely check that out. But yeah, let's get into phase 3. So in season management, first off, congrats. You've made it to the best part of the season. Am I right? We've prepared, and now the season is kicking off. We're full steam ahead. So, like I said, in our planning toolkit, we have this phase generally covering days 61 to 120. So that's kind of months 3 and 4 of your season. Could be different, just specifically program to program, but honestly, when we think about this phase and what we think about suggesting, offering tips to our audience about this phase, it really all comes back to, it's all about clear communication. There's definitely different avenues about how you're communicating, what you're communicating about, but this phase is all about communication. So a couple key tasks here, and then I'll get some questions over to Jim. But you obviously want to finalize that practice, that game schedule, make that accessible to families and coaches. TeamSnap actually has a really cool function for admin. We have master calendar, so you can go in and you can, like, week to week, however often you're checking this, you can see that calendar view just like that calendar you have hung up in your office or the calendar on your computer. It's just like that. It's in TeamSnap, and you can look at what every coach, what every team in what every division in your program is running. You can see, hey, on Thursday there could be a practice scheduling issue. Maybe we have 2 practices kind of running back to back. You can address that early on and get out ahead of that. We also like to suggest, this is kind of a fun one, but communicating weekly updates with all of the members of your program. So obviously this could be just reminders about bigger program events. But yeah, like, work this into your weekly schedule. Maybe you give them a heads up about, hey, the weather is looking really bad this week, so be ready for changes. Or if you're just doing something fun, maybe you have a theme week. It could be like a senior week, or if you're dealing with young kids, like we're dealing with, maybe it's a fun themed, like, oh, we're all going to dress like superheroes this time. It's around Halloween, whatever it might be. Use that weekly message to keep your families informed, and just kind of ready for that week, and really excited about that next week. Obviously, we talked a little bit about this, but this phase, you're managing your cancellations, you're rescheduling. I'll say this again, weather, unforeseen events, it's going to happen. So really, like, especially if you're on TeamSnap, use TeamSnap to update those schedules in real time. That you're preventing that last minute panic. And like I said, you're just trying to keep everyone on the same page. Another big one here, track attendance and kind of any team issues that might arise throughout the season. When you flag or log your attendance early on, it's going to help you spot those trends so you can get to your coaches right away, and figure out exactly how you want to support them or deal with whatever is going on, especially if it's like an attendance issue. Um, Maybe the first 3 weeks of the season, the team has barely, in baseball, for example, let's say they've only had 10 kids show up. They can get by, they can run a whole game with 10 kids, but that might be an attendance issue moving forward. So you just want to communicate that early on with your coaches. So Jim, your turn here. Interesting that we're back on this kind of attendance theme, but let me know, can you share time about when tracking attendance or availability actually made a huge difference to you and your programs?
Sure. Yeah, Taylor, depending on the organization, a lot of what you just discussed and outlined really is done by coaches, right? On behalf, where as the program coordinator with 400, 500 kids, I'm not tracking an individual player. So a lot of these are, good guidance to provide to your coaches. Calling out what you talked about, where I shared earlier, RSVPs are fantastic. They're also great for sort of tracking attendance. And as coaches, being able to go back and look at which players have been here, which haven't, depending on the age group and sort of competitive nature of your teams. It may warrant a check-in or a conversation. Maybe just, is the kid okay? Are they having a bad experience? Or, if you get asked about why isn't my player, competing as much or not getting as many innings or isn't pitching? And it's like, well, we were working on pitching last week when you didn't, you weren't able to be there. So it can also be a tool for you to be able to respond to questions. Parents can sometimes be concerned if they see things happening and they don't always remember attendance, candidly, right? And so it's fair to be able to like share that and have that information, to be able to let them know it's not personal. I'm not taking it out on your player. I'm not being punitive for no reason. This is what we, again, set up as expectations early. Here's what we see, and here's why we're making that decision. So that can be just really helpful in those types of, both good conversations or more challenging ones.
No, that's really, it's really good advice, Jim. On that communication trend, like how often do you think organizations, especially when you're at that director, at that admin level, how
Yeah.
often should they be communicating with families during the season?
Again, it probably is matters, what your organization is, but once the season kicks off, my experience is that's really when your coaches and team managers are taking over. This is where I'm, as a program coordinator, I'm spending a lot of time just working with them to make sure that they've got what they need to work with their teams. But you've got things like happenings, fundraisers, maybe special events, team events that are going on. It might be a community night of some sort, new hires in the organization, or maybe featuring a unique or particularly big win or achievement by some of the teams. Ultimately, it's more news, like what's happening in the organization, than it is about like the individual ins and outs of what's happening at the teams. Pretty tough for you at the home office to do that unless you're, smaller and don't have team managers or whatever that might be. But just one last thing, like keep the right perspective with like that. Not everybody's going to be happy all the time, and that's okay. Like it's that way at work. It's in our personal lives. We want to have everyone have a good experience, but there can be some times where other things are entering into a frustration place. So if you're in a very competitive experience and you've got, different lines or starters or those, parents can get different, opinions on what that might be. And so just highly recommend at the onset of the season, coaches are sort of sharing what those are, how they're going to operate and manage the team. What's the best way to engage with them, to ask about things like positions or playing time or, those types of things. Set that up early. If it's a 6U program, pretty much in any sports and it's recreational, it's about having fun and getting out there and being introduced into what that sport is. But as the kids get older and maybe get a little bit more competitive, that can be more challenging. So again, a theme we've shared today, it's about expectations. It's about providing the right resources to know when to reach out and how to do that, and having just good, strong information to be able to articulate how you're following the expectations you set, when you have any conversation about stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Jim. I personally, I'm a Boy Scout. Grew up a Boy Scout, and motto is "Be prepared." So
Sure.
I live by that in my daily life, and would strongly recommend you sports admin to follow suit, because being prepared and just making sure managing expectations, over communicating, like as much as you can do that, you're going to be better served. Cool. So we're getting into phase four, season wrap. Just a quick check at the time. I see we're at 1:30. So we're at phase four. We'll get through phase four and then potentially ask a couple of questions. And if not, if people have to drop, like I said, that's totally cool. We'll send this recording to everyone afterwards. Yeah, so we'll wrap up pretty shortly here. But phase four, season wrap up. Maybe another big congrats here is worth to everyone, once you've reached this stage. The season is officially over, but this is that last stretch of the season, especially on the admin side. And I would argue it's one of the most important. They're all important, but this one is pretty crucial, especially if you're looking forward to the future, trying to set yourself up for future success. Um, this is your best chance to leave families with a great impression, and like I said, set up that smooth transition into next season. A couple of things you might want to include or think about, as you're in this phase. I love the idea of communicating that kind of news element that we just talked about, Jim. Communicate that in kind of a season wrap email or message to all of your families. You can highlight some key moments, celebrate milestones, maybe teams still playing or doing really well, whatever it might be. But families are going to really appreciate that, probably more than we all think. Um, Also, always suggest collecting feedback. However your feedback process or feedback loop might look like. This is the best time to do it, and it's really important. You obviously want to get that feedback from parents, and families and the athletes, but also don't forget about getting your coaches and your volunteers and your program staff. You want to understand how your program's running, what you can do better next season, um, and what you can improve on. This is also a great time to update your website, like I said, kind of with those fun season moments, that recap information, season highlights, team photos, what have you. But also, it's a really good time to open your registration, returning families. With TeamSnap, a really cool feature of our registration is, all of the optional discounts that you can add. So you could add an early bird discount, you could add a discount for returning players, and get those families who are graduating, especially if you're dealing with a wide range of ages, get them signed up for next season right away, get them on board. You're really helping them build that loyalty to your organization. So, Jim, one final question
Sure.
for you. This is actually kind of a fun one, but what is your favorite end of season recognition idea that you've ever done or seen?
That's a great question. So let's see. While I think of that, Taylor,
Sure.
just calling out something you just talked about. Opening early registration, returning families. Like, what is your next program? Like, what's the next thing your members should be thinking about? And I think it's a really good question to ask yourself and your peers in the org. Like, what do we want them to leave this season with, and what's next? And as you talk through that, it really helps guide kind of how you're closing out your season. Getting that survey to like how can we do better. Those are always great. But then also sharing with them like, hey, as we go into the off season, here's a reminder of these training programs, or here's things you can do. Just keeping you top of mind. And as you even called out, I have seen programs that literally will start registering for next year, as the programs close, like a week or two later. Early bird discount, share it. People are excited. They had a good time. Don't forget. So there's nothing wrong with doing that. To answer your question though, like what's one of the funnest things? So our a local community association actually does an annual award presentation for volunteers, and it's not so much a volunteer of the year or the best, but it's really just focused on nominating from the community a volunteer, a coach, somebody that you've interacted with who's
Cool.
made an impact and a difference. And I think it's two a year, maybe, or three. It started off by on the 60th anniversary, looking back
Wow.
60 years and starting off with like 10 sort of like foundational cornerstone members, they call it. and each year just do between two, I think it's 2 or 3. And it's not like necessarily about who did the most, who did ever, although many of those seem to factor into the winners. But it's a recognition and acknowledgement, and getting the community also like sharing some stories and talking about that, which it's a lot of fun. Get highlighted at a high school game. They get brought out in a small plaque. So just a small way to get some serious mileage out of a recognition program for those volunteers who really are doing so much to impact the programs that everyone on this call and watching this video are providing.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's great, Jim. I mean, those community members, especially the ones that, like you said, it tends to probably tends to be a lot of the people who are working really hard, but even if it doesn't have to be, those people are going to be the best stewards of your organization throughout your community. And that's one of the best parts about esports is just building that community and having kind of becoming that community staple. So I really like that. That's cool. So we are actually, Jim, I'm just checking time here. We're at 1:36. So
Mhm.
I think let's breeze through the Q&A. What I am going to say, for anyone on the webinar, please feel free to reach out to us. Reach out to us if you have any questions. We'll also take a look through the questions. I'm just conscious of everyone's time
Yep.
here. And we'll get some content out about answering any of those questions that we may not have answered already on the call. But like I said, just trying to stay conscious of time here. Um, but yeah, like I said, thank you. Big shout out to Jim. Thank you for joining us. I think that was a really awesome and fun look at kind of how you can plan and execute 150 days of your season, how you can plan any season, set it up for success, and kind of most importantly, how we're keeping those families happy, having good experiences throughout the way. Real quick, let's say you're ready to make the switch to running your season with TeamSnap. um, why do we, what makes this process easy? So one thing I want to shout out with TeamSnap, you're going to get access to our full onboarding support team. That's our group of TeamSnap experts, and they're actually going to guide you kind of step by step through your setup. So we're going to help you build your first registration form. We're going to help you set up your programs and teams, and just make sure everything's really tailored to your organization. One question we get a lot with people who are making that switch is maybe they have data in another system. Honestly, no problem. Our expert team is going to help you import your users and data, and you can hit the ground running ASAP. Because we know making a switch can feel like a big move, but we've helped hundreds and hundreds of organizations make it smooth, simple, successful. So by the time you're done, your system's going to be fully set up, your staff's going to be confident, and you yourself are going to be ready to run that next great season. My last slide here is just quick kind of 2 quick next steps for everyone. Keep an eye on your inbox. We're going to be sending the full webinar recording so that you can review it. You can also share it with members of your team. And I'm also going to just drop a quick link here. If you are ready to take the next step with TeamSnap, definitely reach out to our team and you can schedule a personalized demo. Let me just promote that on stage here so you guys can see. But yeah, like I said, reach out to our team. You can schedule a demo, see how the platform can really work for your organization and your season. And yeah, I mean, I think that's all we've got. We really appreciate everyone's time today. Big thank you again to Jim. Thank you for joining. Thank you for all your expert insight, and cheers to everyone who's running the season back to school. Let's run a great one, an organized one, and keep providing those great experiences.
Well said. Thanks, Taylor.
Thanks, everyone.